back to the Whatever Works podcast. I am excited to film this little part 2 of my family dynamics episode. The last episode was a very hard one for me to film. I cried a lot and was very slobbery and snotty and crying the whole time, so I appreciate you guys tuning into that one. Today I just wanted to answer some questions that were asked on both my private and my podcast social media, just about families in general, but also about my family in specific. I know a lot of my followers are my friends in real life, and so they had some specific questions that I wanted to answer. So yeah, the first question, I'm going to kind of group it. I'm going to talk about my bio family, my adoptive family, and then my foster family, and then go over some general questions that I got as well. So I'll start with my bio family, and one of the questions that I got, sorry, I have yet to print out my questions because I feel like that looks more formal and professional, but I'm me, and formal and professional aren't really how I do shit. So a question I got for all the families that I thought I'd talk about just in the different sections was what this family has taught me. That feels kind of weird to answer with my biological family because they are my flesh and blood. So I'm I don't really know what they've taught me. But I think in essence, hopefully this makes sense, they've taught me how to live. As I mentioned a lot in my last episode, we dealt with a lot of poverty. We were very food insecure, financially insecure. There were a lot of things that statistics would make us seem like we should have had it way worse than we were. We were capable, and some of it was masking, but we were capable of showing up, looking really good and being really good in a lot of our environment. We went to church. My mom always had us put together. My mom made something out of nothing for food. We were able to survive. They taught me how to live. I don't know how else to describe that other than with nothing we made something. And I am really grateful for that. I think I can work with very little resources and make a lot of I can do a lot with it, if that makes sense. I don't know how I want to phrase that, but I can do a lot with a little. I can make something out of nothing, and I think that's something that my mom taught me. And I'm not even just talking about with food. Yes, I can. I think I can make something out of nothing with food, and my mom was really good. I think a lot of moms are. My mom was really good. There's a pack of oatmeal and half a gallon of milk, and somehow we had a decent meal in front of us every day. She tried her best, and I'm really grateful for that. But I think that's what my biological family taught me, was just how to live life with the resources you have and just survive. We should not have survived. Sometimes when I think about my childhood and I think about the fact that I had suicidal siblings, we should not have survived, and we did. And I think that has a lot to do with my mom and us a lot about just making things work and being resilient. So I definitely think that that's what my biological family taught me, and hopefully that makes sense. One of the questions I was asked was my relationship with my biological father's side of the family. He has a lot of siblings, and I only know really one of them. I'm sure I've met the other ones on and off throughout my life, but his one sister lived here in Utah when my parents moved out here. She's kind of the reason they moved out here when I was little, and she has 4 or 5 kids. I can't even think. Anyway, my cousins, her daughters and her son, they're a big part of my life still. I have 3 girl cousins and then a boy cousin, and they aren't a ton older than us, but older than us by at least 5 years, I think. So they felt a little bit more like aunts and uncles growing up. But we did live with them for a little bit when we first moved to Utah, and that was really fun. I have a lot of good memories with my cousins. They are really special to me. They are some of our favorite people. We still get together as often as we can for family game nights. We try once a month, but they have kids, we have kids. It's crazy, but I have a really good relationship with my cousins, and that I think is really special, especially because my parents' divorce was not amicable and didn't end very well, and my parents' marriage wasn't really great either. But my mom managed to have such a positive relationship with my dad's sister and with her kids. And I remember they would call my cousins would call my mom when they would get in trouble as teenagers. My mom was the person they would call to pick them up, and I don't know. I think that's really special. That's really cool. That's one of the things I really admire about my mom is her ability to maintain so composed around my dad's side of the family. Again, we're not around very many of them, but I can't imagine how vulnerable and how difficult it would be to be around my ex's side of the family. But especially like when the marriage and the relationship wasn't great. But my mom has handled it really well. Like she'll show up to she doesn't live in the state anymore, but she'll show up to family events if she's around and stuff like that. And no one has these cousins specifically, no one has any hard feelings towards her. They all love her and she loves them. She has a lot of love for them. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's also why I'm able to maintain such a good relationship with these cousins, is because they respect my mom and they have nothing but good things to say about her too. So that's the only really relationship I have with my biological father's side of the family. As I mentioned in my last episode, I don't have a relationship with my biological father. That's a choice I made a few years ago, a choice I made a long time ago, but like more specifically a couple years ago. It doesn't feel beneficial to me to have a relationship with him. There's a lot of hard feelings about just my childhood and about what I understand about my parents' relationship now as an adult that don't sit well with me. And a lot of people wonder if that resentment, like if it's healthy or if it like diminishes anything, like if it stops me from doing things. And I genuinely think the answer is no. I think every time I've tried to have a closer relationship with my dad, it's brought me anxiety. It's brought me lots of feelings of insecurity. And I have a father figure in my life from my adoptive family. My dad, how I reference him, is he's my dad. He does everything, says everything, fulfills everything I need in a dad. And yeah, I don't need that role filled because I have it. So yeah, that might not be like, you can think that that's not healthy and you can think that that's like maybe sad, but it's what's been the best for me in my specific situation and for my mental health and just like my overall well-being. Some questions I got about my adoptive family was that same question I got above of what have the people in this family taught you. My adoptive family, the Camerons, I love them so much. The thing that my adoptive family has taught me is unconditional love. I don't think I experienced unconditional love until I met them. And that is not to say anything bad about any of my other families. That is not to say that they didn't love me with everything they could, that they didn't love me as much as they were capable of. And also I know that the idea of unconditional love did not come until I met my adoptive family. And that is something I don't even think I'm capable of a lot of times, because of how I was brought up and because of the different interactions I had with different families. There was a lot of expectation put on me and just on, I think, who I was expected to be as a Casanova or as a part of a different family, that I didn't feel loved unless I was fulfilling a role. And when I met the Camerons, I would do things to feel like I was needed, to allow me to stay. If you know me, I'm like a tornado. I clean up after everybody. Somebody's like walking and I'm just like behind them, picking up after them. And I've been like that from a very, very young age because to be seen in my home, it had to be because I was doing something big, because I was doing something that helped, because my mom had so much going on. There wasn't really time for praise. There wasn't time for or space for attention to be put unless something big was happening, or unless someone was hurt, unless something was bad. So praise, I worked really hard to get the praise. That's why I took care of my siblings and I cleaned the house and I cooked and I did all the things so that I felt seen. And when I met the Camerons, I would do that too. I would go to their house and I would clean, especially Emmy's room, but I think that was mostly because she was so gross and dirty that it gave me anxiety. But I would go and I would clean and I would just do everything to feel like me being there wasn't a burden. And I remember both mom and dad being like, you don't have to come to our house to clean. You don't have to do that. Like, you can come and be a kid. And genuinely, I was like, I don't know how to not do that. This is how I know to not be, this is how what I know to do to not feel like a burden to other people. And they were really quick to change that mindset. Obviously, they loved it when I cleaned because they're not like the most cleanly people naturally. So they weren't like mad about it, but they never made me feel like I had to do something to be there. And I think that's where this idea of like unconditional love, like they just wanted me. They wanted me to be around. They wanted me at their events. They wanted me to be me. And they're a family that I've never ever had to put a mask on to be around. And I use the word cool and special, my like entire other episode. There's no other words to convey the amount, like how astronomically life-changing their love for me has been. I'm not saying it's been perfect. I'm not saying it's been easy. I'm a girl. Not only am I a girl, I'm Mercy. I don't want to say girl. I'm going to take away. Being a girl is good. I'm me. So I come with a lot of baggage, a lot of emotion, a lot of trauma. It's hard to be around me. But the Camerons have been so beautifully patient and accepting and understanding of me, and they've never ever wanted me to be different. They wanted me to be better. I've had some hard times in my life where I was doing things and saying things that I shouldn't. And they will always correct me, but never when I'm doing something big, doing something that's me, have they made me feel like I can't do it. And that's really special. I lived with them back in 2023, and I was going through a really hard time spiritually and mentally. My mental health had like gone off the rails for like the 12th time in my life. But I went to live with them, and I told them like I didn't know how I felt about the church. I didn't know if I wanted to be there. And they were so understanding of that. They set the expectations of like what is acceptable in their home while I was living there, but they never made me feel like I had to go to church or I had to be this or I had to be that. Like they were very open to me taking that time to explore my spirituality and what felt right for me. And the most beautiful thing about my time there was every night I would go to their room and I would sit at the end of their bed. They're both like tucked in, ready for the night. And I would just cry. I would just cry my eyes out at the foot of their bed, talking about what I was working on in therapy, or talking about church stuff, or talking about school or work, whatever, like what I wanted to. I was so confused on what I wanted my life to look like at the time. And every night for 6 months, I sat at the end of their bed and just sobbed my eyes out. And they listened to me. And they never asked me to leave. And they were so confident that I would get to where I needed to be. And not a lot of people in my life are like that. Not a lot of people And I think that's just like general anxiety. Obviously, when you see someone not doing something that you think they should be doing, or you know that they should be doing, or making choices that like are so clearly wrong, you obviously like are super anxious and you don't know what to do and you're scared and stressed for them. And they were so good at not showing that. They listened to me complain about my bishop. They listened to me complain about my trauma, about my childhood, about how it affects me today, about my addiction, about all these different things that I was dealing with at the time. And I would ask them, I was like, what do I do? What do I do? They would give me like their 2 cents. They would tell me what they think I should do, but they would always turn it back around. Mercy, you know what you can do. Mercy, turn to the Lord. Mercy, you're in therapy. They always guided me to have confidence in myself and trust in myself. And it is the greatest thing that they have ever taught me. And I think that ties to the unconditional love in the sense of like they have never doubted that I would be capable of doing it. And just in the home that I grew up in, not because my mom didn't think I was capable of doing it, not because my mom doesn't think listen, let me tell you something about my mom. I don't sing. This is just an example. I don't sing. I'm not a singer. My mom is convinced that if I went on American Idol right now, I could win. Let me repeat myself. I cannot sing. I can carry a tune better than most people, but that's because I did years of choir. My mom is so confident in my ability and in my talents. She's over here listening to my podcast episodes like 6 or 7 times so I get the views up. That's not why I'm doing this podcast. That's not, like, this isn't my ambition. This isn't, like, what I want to do. But my mom has so much confidence in what I'm capable of doing that she doesn't doubt that I'm, like, going to go off and do big things. And also, the Camerons are tuned into who I am and what I am doing. And so their confidence feels so different and special in a very different way. So I hope that makes sense, not discounting what my biological family, how they love me and how they feel for me. And also the trauma that is wrapped in to our childhoods. We don't really have time to be giving each other this ultra mega confidence because we are dealing with our own stuff. But yeah, hopefully I'm showing the respect that I have for both families because that is there. But what I've learned from them are the 2 different families are like catastrophically different. And that's just because they're 2 different families. Okay, and then my foster family. I'm going to answer the same question again of what this family taught you. My foster family are the most grounding people I've ever met. They are very hardworking and they do everything that they can to get to where they want to be, no matter how hard it is. And they taught me that, like, work ethic, how to show up, how to be reliable. They were solid ground for me in many times where my foundation was shaking and my foundation was crumbling. And I think they just taught me to be resilient. They taught me to pull myself up by my bootstraps, get back up on the horse, and keep fighting for what I want. And for a long time, I resented that because I was dealing with I was young, so I was dealing with a lot of things that I didn't want to put my fucking boots on or get on that goddamn horse. But I did it, and I still have that today. I still remember to show up. This sounds funny, but like in sickness and in health, like to show up for the things that I care about, the things that I'm passionate about. My foster mom was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and that is not an easy thing. That has been very hard for everyone. And she has not changed one bit. Her faith in the Lord, her faith in her family, how she shows up for her work, how she shows up for her kids, nothing's changed. She is solid, she's grounded. And I know that she doesn't show us all of her anxieties and all of her sadness and all of her concern. And I think that's just her being a mom. But she has every reason to be angry, to be scared, to be shaken. And she's not. I saw her just recently, and she's just positive. She's trusting the Lord's timing. She's trusting the universe, and everything is going to happen the way that God is intending it to happen. And she's okay with that. And that's a very solid grounding thing that they have taught me. Obviously, I complain way more than any of them could, but that's because I have some Casanova and Cameron, pizzazz in me. But I'm so grateful for them and instilling this, stillness in me. They were such a great example and continue to be a great example of that in my life. Another question I got about them was, how was it living with them through high school? And I explained this a little bit in my last episode, but I am a good person. I've always been a really good, solid kid. Now I'm 26, so I don't feel like I can call myself a kid. But I did my best to not cause trouble. I was around their 4 daughters, so obviously there was drama, and 3 of us went to the same high school. 3 of the 5 of us went to high school at the same time. So I think there was a little bit of drama here and there, but for the most part, I don't think it was too bad. I don't have a lot of being in their house isn't what I remember from high school. I remember the fun things I did. I remember my extracurricular activities. I remember dances. I remember going to school. But I don't think being in their house around them was life-changing, other than the fact that they let me stay in the area I grew up in and let me finish high school with my friends. I have nothing bad to say about the experience that I had with them while I was in high school, because they gave me the chance to stay with my friends. They gave me the chance to do everything I had ever dreamed of, like going to prom with my friends and graduating with all of my best friends and going to college and going on a mission. They set the foundation for that for me. And that's really all I remember about high school living with them. All of my drama that happened was after my mission, and that's because I was severely mentally ill. So I think for a lot of people, moving in with a different family during high school would have been really, really hard. But I already had such a great relationship with them because I was friends with their daughter, really good friends, best friends. I was sleeping over all the time anyway. It didn't change anything. I worked for them on their property, and it didn't really change anything. They gave me a lot, and I am very grateful for that. So yeah, no, I was not a hard kid in my eye. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think I was a difficult high schooler to be around in comparison to a lot of maybe even stereotypes of high schoolers. But I was a pretty solid kid, so it was fine for me, and I think hopefully, praying to God, it was fine for them too. So yeah, those are all the questions that I got about specifically the families. And then I got some just overall questions about family in general. I do want to preface, I am not married and I do not have kids. So a couple of these questions are a little bit about family boundaries. I'm going to express what I hope I do in the future and how I feel now. But God knows that once you become a mother, everything changes. So take what I say with a grain of salt. The first question I got is, how do you become close to people who aren't your blood family? It has been easier for me to become close to people who aren't my blood family than it has been to be close to my blood family. And I think that's very unique to my situation. But I think about the people that I have surrounded myself with from a very young age, who I'm still friends with now, or who are still in my life now. And my relationship with them while still hard because relationships in any form is difficult, has been significantly easier than the relationships I have had with my siblings and with my biological parents. So I have never had an issue with that. The idea of like blood and like blood relation and like blood family, I honestly like dislike more than the idea of like a chosen family. Again, I grew up in really unfortunate circumstances. A lot of things happened to me as a child that should not have happened, and all of that was revolved around my blood family, around people who I was biologically related to, both on my mom's side and my dad's side. So my personal experience with like blood relatives is not positive. So the people I choose, I get to pick if they're in my life. And if they do something to hurt me or to make my relationship with them hard, I choose to forgive them and keep them, or I decide if I don't want that. And I have cut a lot of people out of my life, and most of them are my blood relatives. So my answer is it's way easier for me to choose the people in my life than to feel like I need to keep my blood relatives in my life. The only people I feel by blood I need to keep in my life are my mom, my two sisters, and my brothers. Those are the only blood relatives that I feel like I need to keep. My sister-in-law is not a blood relative. She's back there behind the camera pointing at herself. As much as she'd like us to be blood related, we're not. She married my brother. By law, we're related. Not blood. She comes from a family of polygamists. Does that make sense now? Okay. So obviously, I also mean my nieces and my nephews in that too. Their dogs, not so much. Chowder. I'm talking to you. Okay, the next question is, what qualifies people as your family? Me. I qualify you as my family. And if you need help doing that, give me a call. I'll tell you if they're family worthy. Let me tell you, I choose to be in contact with my biological family. It is a choice. I expressed this in my last video. It is hard for me to be around my siblings. There is so much trauma that we went through as children that looking at them and seeing them struggle and seeing myself still struggle as adults because of the actions and things that happen to us as kids, that is not easy for me. It's actually really hard. I spent 4 years in therapy trying to figure out how to cut my family out of my life. And it was not working. And I was so fucking frustrated. I had 3 different therapists at the time. Not because I was a bad client, but because they were interns. I'd like to make that clear. But I have had 3 different therapists. And they keep telling me, they're like, why do you want to cut out your family? Why don't you want a relationship with them? And it's because being around them triggered my fight or flight. It was so hard to be around them, and still sometimes is. And then as my siblings started to have kids, and I saw my nieces and my nephew, I knew I couldn't not have them in my life. I have one aunt on my mom's side that I'm really close to, but that's it. All of my other aunts and uncles have done nothing but made me feel less. Like I'm not deserving, like I'm not worthy, and a plethora of other really horrible things. As soon as I saw those little squishy faces, I knew I needed them in my life. And in doing so, I needed to have a relationship with their parents, who are my siblings. And I think once I made that connection with my therapist of like, I need my nieces and my nephews to have a positive relationship with an aunt. It changed my mindset of the relationship I wanted to have with my siblings. And how this ties to the question of what qualifies people as your family, it's a choice. Blood does not mean anything to me. It does not mean anything to me. And I think my culture as a Latina, all of my ancestors are rolling in their grave at that thought because blood family is everything. It is 2026. We know how traumatizing our families can be, and we know that you can choose to be better. And if there are people in my life who are hurting me and they choose not to be better, they don't qualify as my family. They don't get to qualify to be in my life. And that's my answer, is I qualify who gets to be in my life. And that's not saying that you have to be perfect. Even with my adoptive family, I expressed that my dad is my best friend. He and I have fought several times. Because he is a man, and that is his biggest flaw. And I am a traumatized daughter. Like, my experiences with men and dad figures have not been good. So he has to deal with a lot of that, there's repercussions to that, and he has to deal with that. But he loves me, and he wants to be my dad. So we deal with that. We face that. My relationship with my siblings, not easy. Probably every other week, someone's cutting someone off. That's the dynamic. That's the trauma. Speaking and expressing itself very often, but we choose to continue to be in each other's lives because we love each other and because we're willing to forgive and to move past and to understand the situation that we're in. I see these questions and I hope that you don't feel like you have to have anyone in your life that doesn't benefit you. I understand that that's hard. I understand that maybe it's a privilege for me to be able to say yes and no to people in my life, but every single person deserves to be surrounded by goodness and by love and by effort. And if there are people who are not bringing effort or willingness and who are surrounding you with hate and with discouragement and with just overall insecurity, they do not need to be in your life. I do not care if that is your mom, your dad, your mother-in-law, your grandma, I don't care who that is. The only person that I would say you have to have in your life is when you are a parent to a young child. You have to show up, and there is no excuse for that. Other than that, it is free game to who benefits you and how you want to view that. That is my opinion. I'm clearly very passionate about that. But I never want the people in my life to feel like they have to have a relationship with someone who brings them down. That's just not fair. Our lives are so short. Why surround yourself by people who couldn't give a fucking rat's ass about you? I don't. And I probably won't anymore. Unless I work for them. That's a different story. But luckily right now I love my boss. The next question I got are, what are things about your family that you will use in your own family? So we've established that I'm kind of a bitch. I think I have a longer list of things I know I'm not going to do than things I know I'm going to do. So yeah, I'm really hoping, I mentioned this in my last episode. This is all bouncing off of the last episode, but I mentioned that there are so many different things about each family that I'm excited to bring into my own family one day. And I think a lot of that is like what I talked about in what they have taught me. I want to bring that resilience, that grounding, that unconditional love. I want to take those things into my families. My biological family, we are the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. Whenever we're together, it's a hoot and a freaking holler. There's always drama, naturally. That's a family gathering. It's not a gather round if someone's not crying. But we are so funny, and we laugh about everything, and we come together and we share stories. My mom calls when we're together a gather round. English is her second language, and you can tell. But I want to have gather rounds, a version of that in my own family. I want us to feel dinner is something that's important to me, like meals together. We didn't do a lot of that growing up, mostly Sundays because, again, my mom works a lot. But my brother and my sister-in-law, I live with them right now, they're actually really good at sitting down and having dinner with each other like 5 times a week. There's only like the weekends where they really like, where everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But every night, I make dinner a few times a week. Every night we get together and like Ricky, my brother, will like sit there and wait till Faith's at the table or wait till Ava's at the table. And I've already like started digging in and like there's no prayer. We don't pray. But it's, I think just the TV's going in the back. Bob's Burgers is playing. But I think it's the physical presence of having everyone at the table is important to them. And I don't know if they've ever like clocked that intentionally, but that is something that they all do. And I think that's really important to me. That's something I want to take into my own family that I think my biological family has taught me, is like the beauty of sitting down together as a family and eating together. My adoptive family, they are really into games, and these all seem like surface level things, but that's because I don't have a family of my own, so I don't really know like the depths of like what I want to bring yet. I also don't have a partner. Like, so many things will change once I have a family of my own. But when we're together, we always have like 1 or 2 game nights. And again, it's this idea of coming together and being together and doing something as a group. They are also, 2 of the siblings in my adoptive family are like huge movie buffs. So we'll get together and watch like critically acclaimed movies that like my sister found, and I refuse to watch her foreign indie films, but she like goes through all the Oscar like nominations and she'll watch that. My brother does that too. But things like that, where like maybe the weird little niche things that someone brings in, we'll all sit down and like do something together. We sat down and watched all 3 seasons of Ted Lasso together one Christmas, and that was really special. Just this essence of being together, playing games, or even watching a show, like spending time together and making sure everyone is present, that I think both my families have taught me that a lot. I think the most important thing that my foster family taught me is just the importance of the gospel, and I think all of my families taught me that, but my foster family definitely solidified that in me, and that's a choice that I make every day of like, my family, my home will be very gospel-centered. Jesus Christ will be the center of my home, and I think that's always been super important to me, and I really hope and pray that that's what I get to bring to my home as a mother one day. I have lots of thoughts and opinions about how I will raise my kids in the church, and maybe that's a separate episode, but I do want our home to have the Spirit, and I want my children to know about Jesus Christ and that they come from a Heavenly Father, and that is, I think, the most foundational piece of what I want to bring from all of my families. Yeah. Another question I got is, how do you protect your peace while balancing family? I do not have kids or a husband yet. So again, what I say, I could be eating my words in 5 years. And also, I'd like to think I'm a very consistent person, and what I say, I do, even if it's wrong, because I'm very prideful. But there's this, it's all over the internet. I am not the first person to do or say this. There's this idea that because you are married to someone, you have to accept their family's toxicity because you're married to them. Abso-fucking-lutely not. I'm cringe. I pray for my husband and his family every day. Because fingers crossed, praying to every God and the universe that I marry into a lovely, beautiful, healthy, understanding family. I like white men from Utah, so that's not likely. But I pray for it. My peace and my children's peace are my top priority. If there are family members, even if it's my own family that I have fought years to choose to have in my life, if when I get married, their energy, I don't see why this would happen. Actually, I think every one of my siblings are getting better the more kids that come into the family. I think we're getting more understanding and just like connecting with ourselves. But if there's ever a time where my mom or my sister-in-law or my brother or my sisters, anyone, brings negativity and takes away peace from my family, see ya. Years of therapy, by the way. Years of therapy at protecting my own peace. This isn't something I just woke up and was capable of doing. Being a bitch, yes, I think I was born that way. But my bitchiness, it's backed by years of therapy and fact. No one deserves to be around someone who doesn't bring them peace. No one... Look at me, look at my eyes. If you're listening, look at my ears. Think of my ears. Lock in. Everybody turn on their listening ears. That's what I did when I was a preschool teacher. You don't owe anybody anything. You do not owe an in-law, a biological parent, an adoptive parent, a foster parent, a friend, anything at the cost of your peace and your well-being. Do you understand that? I'm holding your hair as I say that. Never sacrifice your peace for someone else's benefit. Okay? That's all I have to say about that. And then in 5 years, I'm going to be with my toxic mother-in-law, but, we'll get there when we get there. Boundaries with family. That was just an overall topic. I will set the boundaries for my family. And I will follow my boundaries, even if no one else does. Boundaries are a big reason why it took me years to have a good connection with my biological family. They are all my 3 younger siblings, or I guess I'm the 3rd youngest, but my 2 younger siblings and my 1 older brother, they're very tight. They've lived with each other for years. It has not been easy. My 3 siblings live together. They are a very special bunch of people. My brother has type 2 bipolar. Both my sisters have severe depression, anxiety. I have severe depression, anxiety. We have PTSD running in there. We have OCD markers. We're the whole 9 yards of the DSM-5. I promise you that. And for a very long time, no one would tell me what was happening because it quite literally caused me so much anxiety that I could not handle it. It would not be about me in the slightest, and it would disrupt the equilibrium of my life. And on the other hand, I was pissed when they didn't tell me what was happening. So they didn't tell me because that was me protecting my peace, and then I was mad when they didn't tell me because I want to know everything because I grew up raising them. Finally, we set a boundary of, you will tell me what I need to know and when I need to know it. It's been harder living with my brother and my sister-in-law because they have a stronger relationship with my siblings. So I hear a lot more of what's going on. But I also have this mindset now in the lieu of boundaries that I can't control what they're going to do, but it is my choice whether or not I let it affect my life. I don't know if any of that makes sense in the idea of boundaries, but it is case by case, person for person, relationship for relationship. Boundaries with I don't know if I have boundaries with my adoptive family, other than I don't want to know about anyone's sex life. But that's not even a boundary for just my family. That's a boundary for every single person I've ever met. I don't want to know about your sex life. Yuck. Family boundaries are very personal. They're very important. I think every family should have boundaries. I don't think access, like open door access to extended family is a normal thing or even an acceptable thing. Especially when you have kids, it is super important that they're protected and that you feel comfortable with the boundaries that are set. I have lots of friends who have boundaries, like no one changes their kids' diapers, no one kisses their kid's face, their kids aren't allowed on social media, like pictures of them. Like, these are regular basic boundaries, and people push them so much. That is not your kid. That is not your family. That is their unit. Trust yourself to know what boundaries are important and to know when people are choosing to ignore them or when they're learning them. There is a difference. And when people repeatedly choose to ignore them and they put you, your kids, your family, they take away your peace or they put you in harm's way, that's when I go, they are not considered family. If they care more about themselves than they care about themselves and their pleasure than they do about your peace when they're around, they don't care about you. That's how I choose boundaries. I don't know if that makes sense. Again, I'm not married or have kids, so who knows how that'll change, but yeah. Another question I got is, does your family dynamic affect the way you are as an adult? Yes. Yeah. As I mentioned, a lot of trauma from my childhood. There are things that happened to me that I still affect me today. For simpler answer, I have horrible disordered eating habits, and that's because I grew up food insecure. I have so many abandonment issues because my father got deported and because my mom couldn't physically be around a lot as a child. I'm always scared that no one's going to choose me and that no one's going to love me because of the way my adoptive and foster family have come in and out of my life over the years. Yeah. But I don't think I'm special in that way. I think we all have pros and cons to how our family has affected us. And there's lasting effects to that. I am in therapy. I've been in therapy consistently for almost 5 years now. And I go almost every week. I'm now on like an every other week thing, but I was going every week for 4 years. The way I grew up, the way people in my families, all three, have affected me, both positively and negatively, has made my life really difficult. And I think my parents, any of them, all of them can get really angry at that idea. But I think if they look back on it, I think that's just life. No one's ever going to make the exact perfect decisions and not affect their kids. Like, that's just a fact. And the person who asked me this, I think, wanted to know more in the sense of, like, the negative, like, have my families negatively impacted me? And the answer is yes. And that doesn't mean I don't love them, and that doesn't mean I don't choose them every day. But that is why I have multiple families, is because there has been negative consequences to people's actions. Yeah. I will probably also get into, like, not like a whole trauma dump episode, but there are definitely, like, really big things in my life that have happened that affect me as a person and as an adult that I don't think people talk about enough, that I want to one day be able to open up about and share my experiences. The last question I got is, who's your favorite sister-in-law? I have 2 sisters-in-law. My oldest biological brother is married to Faith, and she is my she helps me run my podcast. She helps me with Mike and with Mike. She helps me with audio and visual stuff. She's actually behind me right now painting because we have picked a significantly less difficult setup. It used to be like 6 computers and she's pressing buttons. I just record on a little vlog camera and have a mic. She's my emotional support for the podcast. And then my little brother in my adoptive family is married to Tabitha. And she's the newest member of our family. They've been married for a year. My answer to who my favorite sister-in-law is, I hate them both. So I think I'm my favorite sister-in-law because in comparison to my biological sisters, I'm way better. And in comparison to my adoptive sisters, I just have better personality. So, me. Yep. I feel good about that. Now I go, boo. They're so different. My sisters-in-law are so different that there's not even a comparison of who's my favorite. And genuinely, honestly, they both piss me off so much in different ways that I'm like, most of the time, no one's my favorite. But I'm a bitch. So, I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite anything. Actually, I have a favorite a lot of things. People constantly disappoint me. I just, Harry Styles. Thank you, Faith. That's why I keep her around, because she reminds me that I love Harry Styles. He's my favorite. Jesus and God are probably number 1, and then Harry Styles. And then, like, other people in my life fall underneath that, I guess. But those are the only things I have favorites about. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that this wasn't too boring, and I hope it clears up some more of maybe the questions you have after my family dynamics episode. I am so grateful and so lucky to be loved by so many incredible people, and I really hope that my answers and my experiences feel as respectful as I mean for them to be. Obviously, I'm very silly, very sarcastic, but I am so grateful to my mom, to my brothers and sisters, to my adoptive parents, to my adoptive siblings, to my foster family, and my foster sisters for everything they've done for me. And in real life, things can be shit, and I never want to sugarcoat that or mask that. And I want to share those experiences, and that doesn't change how much I love them or how grateful I am for them. I just want to be as real as I possibly can when sharing my experiences, so that no one, for one, because I should be able to have my own voice, and 2, so that hopefully other people can find some camaraderie in their experiences. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.